Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Blue Line Blast podcast. I'm your host, Jim Biringer, back alongside my co-host, Matthew Blittner. Guys, final one, teeing it up before the Christmas holidays, before the holiday break. Hope everybody enjoyed their Hanukkah season for those that celebrate that as well. And we'll see you guys in the new year. Happy New Year to everybody as well, because we'll be off next week, and we'll be bringing it back in the new year for you guys. But, Matthew, we're back. A lot to get to before hockey shuts down for a couple of days.
Oh, Jim, it's been a whirlwind of a time. As hockey gets ready to hit pause for 3 days, and as we get ready to hit pause for, week and a half, and again, happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas, happy and healthy New Year to everyone. Jim, there's so much going on. And, I mean, we may as well start with the biggest cluster of them all, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who not only, if the playoffs started today, would the Toronto Maple Leafs miss for the first time in a decade. But they fired one of their coaches, Mark Savard, who was running the power play. The power play is, I believe, dead last in the league at this moment. Austin Matthews is on pace for what will arguably be the worst offensive season of his career. And let's be honest, he's missed games. He's missed quite a few games over the course of his career, and yet he still put together better numbers in those injury-riddled years than what he might put together this year. And they look like, there's rumors that Craig Berube is going to be fired and replaced by Pete DeBoer. Jim, the Toronto I know as hockey media based in the United States, we all laugh routinely at the misery that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Jim, the Maple Leafs are Maple Leafing in a horrible way right now.
Whew. Yeah, where do we begin with that hot mess, right? Because I think it's the talk of the sports world no matter where you are, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in the United States. Like, say if this was one of the local teams with the local radio stations were like the Toronto radio stations and talked about the Rangers like they do about the Leafs, we might have a comparison more on that later when we have a great guest coming on the show. Mike Ashmore will join us, but that's for later after some things that we have to get through here. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, what a mess. Look, it's never a good thing when the coach basically tries to distance himself from the team in losses. It's like, when the follow-up is, they played with urgency. The opposite team played with more urgency. They're talking about the Capitals last week. This goal could be avoidable. That goal could be avoidable. Where's the effort in the heart? Well, you got to ask those guys. That's never a good comment coming from the head coach. Problem is they just brought in the head coach last year, and you're really going to pay another coach to go away? I just don't see it. And I'm going to throw this out here because, to me, what's another head coach going to do when poor roster construction, no buy-in, there's no buy-in from the top players? You can have the buy-in from the middle six on, the defense on, but if Austin Matthews, John Tavares, William Nylander, guys like that are not your best players, they're not going anywhere. Yes, I get the injuries to Stolarz, to Wall. All these guys are down. But Brad Treliving completely changed this identity of this team overnight. And look, Marner not there, I get it. But the Maple Leafs are a shell of themselves.
Shell, absolutely. And, as you mentioned, the comments that Berube made, it's never a good sign when people are easily dissecting a coach's words where he's saying, ask those guys, talk to those guys, instead of saying we or our team or something. And then, you have guys like William Nylander who are preaching that they have great relationship with Berube, and then 12 hours later, they're literally being seen in front of everybody, during a team practice, shouting with their coach, getting into a shouting match with their coach. And yes, obviously things happen, heat of the moment, I'm not saying no, but look, it's not a good look for them. And we all know Berube is a no-nonsense guy. Part of the reason why he was beloved in St. Louis, it was also part of the reason why he was not quite run out of town in St. Louis, but part of the reason why he's no longer in St. Louis. Because guys like that, coaches like that, have a bit of a shelf life situation. And well, I don't think that his shelf life has run out in Toronto. Far from it. I do put this more on Brad Drivlin and the players than I do on Berube. Jim, how often do you see a team fire one of its assistant associate coaches at this point in the season and it not lead to something bigger? Like, it's not, and not to say it's completely rare, but
it's rare.
It's not the NFL or Major League Baseball where, they fire assistants like you and I change our clothes.
This is a fair point. I mean, that's a fair point, Matt. I mean, it's true.
This is the NHL. Assistants and associates get fired all the time in the offseason. That's what the offseason's for.
Right. Never in season. It's rare that you see an associate coach get fired in season, and usually it's because somebody's got to take the fall for something. Marc Savard taking the fall. But let's be honest, Marc Savard running that power play, even last year, did not look good in Toronto. And the Toronto power play was not good, and Marner was there last year. Like, yes, the identity was going to be different. I think a lot of people expected last season to be this season for the Leafs. Struggle, understand what the new system is, but okay, that's great. And Florida went through this with Paul Maurice, and they got in by the hair of their chinny chin chin, and a lot of things went their way to get to a Stanley Cup final and became the team that they are. But Toronto, come the big moments in the playoffs, just always look the other way. Anthony Stolarz called out his team earlier in the season. Berube's doing it now. Again, it's the top guys buying in and doing it, right? The laissez-faire plays, the heart, the effort. Sound like the Devils. Not to take a shot at New Jersey on this because they're not, and the Rangers too. But still, I mean, New Jersey has the same. Like, New Jersey, sometimes the heart and the effort can be questioned in certain games. Like, but it's not to the Toronto level, right?
Nowhere close.
Nowhere close. But the Leafs need something. Is this the wake-up call? Because, again, they don't have the assets to trade anybody. They don't have make those earth-shattering trades. And now you're seeing how much Mitch Marner really meant to this team. And all the pundits pretty much up there were like, hey, you're going to regret losing this player if you don't bring him back. Yes, we need to shake up, but Mitch Marner took more to blame than anybody else up there, and they ran him out of town, and you can clearly see he protected Tavares because Tavares looks like an old player now. The team looks old and slow, and they didn't get better, and I think they got worse.
They did get worse, and Jim, there's a point to be made here about how teams, sometimes they wait too long to make a move, sometimes they, make their move too quickly. Toronto seems to be very caught in between on what it should do, when it should do it. And I just want to draw your attention to something.
Yes.
When Stolarz called out his teammates, what was it, 2 months ago, roughly?
Something like that, yeah.
The outrage that there was, the goalie calling out the team, he's not a star. Like, what is he doing? Jim, this episode that's going on right now, and I'm not talking about the episode of the podcast, I'm talking about this episode in time for the Toronto Maple Leafs, proves that Stolarz was 100% right, and no one else stepped up to call them out or to say anything. He's the only one who had the cojones to do it.
No, he's got the marbles.
And he did it, and it still hasn't woken them up. And now Berube's doing it, and it's not waking them up. Jim, again, we said it before, United States-based hockey media generally laughs at the misery of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the fans and the Toronto media. If this season continues to go the way it's going for Toronto, the fans might very well riot. And I am not advocating for that. I'm not trying to incite a riot. I'm not trying to advocate for violence at all. But Jim, the Toronto fans are not going to stand for this.
I mean, we already see it.
You think the players are not standing for it? You think the coaching staff's not standing for it? The fans, I have to give the Toronto fans credit on this one. They are not going to stand for this. And major things are going to happen with the Maple Leafs if they continue down this path.
Well, I mean, final point on this. Just look at the stands and look at the ticket prices and look at their attendance. You saw the report in The Athletic. They're on their. They haven't sold out a game this year. This is going to be the first time in
4 sellouts this year.
Four sellouts this year, but still, it was the first time in 16 years, something like that they haven't sold out every game. Like,
pretty much.
That's ticket prices are high. It's a corporate atmosphere. It sounds like a morgue in that place. Like, I've been there a couple of times. It's like a dead. They don't. It's not a home ice advantage for this team. It really isn't. It's a shame. And the heart and the effort. And some guys just don't embrace being there. Some guys don't embrace being captains there. Look, something's got to change with this team. Clearly, Marner was a catalyst for this team some way, shape, or form. He just took too much of the blame. And you can debate on how he ended it and when he left and when he decided to do it and this and that. But you need 34 to buy in. You need 81. You need Nylander to buy in. 88 needs to buy in. You got to get that buy-in from those guys. Guys are hanging out too much at the blue line because you know who the guy that bought in from a very young age. You're going to like this transition. 87 in Pittsburgh. The buy-in had the great Mario Lemieux right there. It was there for his first game in Jersey in 05. Great game. Look, Sid the Kid passes Super Mario most points in Penguins franchise history. Salute to you, Sid the Kid.
First of all, I promise not to be mad at you for stealing my transition into Crosby, because I was all set with, a guy whose heart is never questioned, whose effort is never questioned, who embraces being the captain. Yep. Well, that's Sidney Crosby for you.
That's true. It's very true. Hey, two good ways to talk about Sid the Kid, because Sidney Crosby, look, I don't run the Hall of Fame, and I know what the rules are. But if there was another guy that deserved to go straight in the Hall of Fame after he retired, it's Sidney Crosby.
So, as much as Sid would deserve it, I am someone who is against having, unless the player is sick, like something like a Lou Gehrig type of situation, like unless it's something like that, I do not ever feel that a Hall of Fame in any sport should, immediately induct someone in right after they retire. Like, I don't believe in that. But that's me. I will say this. Sid is no longer a kid, but he still plays with the enthusiasm and joy of one. He's got 90-plus points each of the last couple of years. He's on pace to do it again this year. He's doing things that no one has ever done before at his age. He's on pace to have his 21st consecutive point per game or better season, which it's an all-time record. And Jim, if you look at where he is, so he's at 17-24 right now, right?
Yep.
So he just passed Super Mario for 8th. He will pass Eiserman this year, barring, something drastic. His contract, I believe, runs through next season. There's a lot of players bunched up in that span. By the time he's done this year and next year, let's say he gets another 50 points this year.
Right.
Okay. And then let's say he gets another 80 points next year, which would be a down year for him, but let's say he gets 80 points next year.
Right.
So that's 130 more points, right? What's 130 plus 17-24?
2,000, close to it?
No,
less than that.
So he would be knocking on the door of 1,900 points. He would be conceivably, and I don't think he retires after next season.
No.
He conceivably could pass Yager, another Pittsburgh legend, for number 2 all time in score. Now, he's not going to get anywhere close to Gretzky.
No.
He doesn't get anywhere close to Gretzky. But if Sid plays the rest of this year, next year, and the year after that, Jim, we're talking about conceivably, very easily, him getting 2,000 points.
Oh, easily. Snap of a finger, 2,000 points, easily. And the fact that if he could pass 2 Pittsburgh legends like that, that'd be huge. I mean, I think that would be great. Now, again, Yager probably should have more points than he did, but that's a debate for another time because he spent
Well,
so much
Yager
time.
left at the height of his powers to
Yeah,
deliver.
exactly.
Yager should have broken Gretzky's goal record
Easily.
before Ovechkin ever did because he left at the height of his powers.
Right. He went to KHL, came back, and yeah. So, look, Sidney Crosby is one of the best players I've ever seen play the game. Him and Ovechkin revitalized the National Hockey League coming out of that lockout. What he's done for that franchise is unbelievable. 3 Stanley Cups, another final, multiple gold medals, the Olympics, the 4 nations, like what he's done internationally for Canada. I mean, to have to go from Mario to Crosby with the group that they had there, one of the best players ever to do it. And, my hat's off to him because generational talent that we may never see ever again.
Absolutely. And Jim, just one last point on Sid. Much like how Mario missed a lot of games in his career due to injury and illness, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, back issues, Sid missed a lot of time with concussions earlier in his career. He missed a good amount of time due to COVID. Not him getting COVID, but because
the season,
He missed a good amount of games due to a lockout.
Mm-hmm.
He would have easily had, another 250 games played?
Easily.
Maybe even 300 more games played? Let's just say a point a game.
He's there. I mean, he's there.
He would have been knocking on the door of 2,500 points.
Oh, easily knocked on 2,500 points. And remember, you brought up the injuries. There was a point after some of his concussions and stuff. There was a point that said, hey, maybe Crosby doesn't play ever again. There was a lot of that talk. And look, he's come back, got his neck fixed, everything. Unbelievable what he's doing, right? It's just unbelievable what Crosby's doing.
Right, and we won't see another career like his when it's all said and done until maybe potentially McDavid, but that's a conversation for another day. Jim, we have a terrific guest, pal of yours, pal of mine, pal of the show, from the Trentonian, Mike Ashmore, coming to join us right after a word from our non-existent sponsor. So let's go to it. Welcome back from the non-existent sponsor segment, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matthew Blittner, co-host Jim Biringer on the Blue Line Blast podcast. Welcoming in our special guest from the Trentonian, Mike Ashmore. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
All right, doing all right.
Yeah, can't complain. Holiday season, NHL roster freeze in effect. Christmas break is, right around the corner. Coming up in about 24 hours from debut of this show. And Mike, the New Jersey Devils sort of got a Christmas or an early Christmas present. They got back Jack Hughes earlier than expected. They got back Timo Meier from his family matter. They got back Arseny Gritsky healthy. They got back Brett Pesce healthy. It didn't translate to a win, but, what's your take on Santa's gift to the Devils and their fans?
Well, first off, I'm glad that I could be a nice lump of coal for everyone for this podcast here just before Christmas. I appreciate you boys having me on. But yeah, obviously that's a nice boost for them. I think maybe it's going to take them a little while to kind of get back to used to, how to play with Jack again. That's obviously, you mentioned the other guys as well, but playing with 86 again, that's a big adjustment for everybody there. To not get a win on home ice against Buffalo. I know Buffalo's surging, obviously, but to not get a home ice win against Buffalo with that group, a little concerning for me, but long term, obviously, they have to be happy with having 86 back. I know they have a couple guys are still waiting on as well, but I think it's become pretty apparent over the past month-ish when he missed the time with the hand injury, how much he really drives things, especially with the offense there. So to get him back again long term, they're looking pretty good moving forward here. There's still some issues there with that team, don't get me wrong, but they're looking much better with him.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, the way the team is constructed and the way the offense is driven through 86, that's never a good thing because I think the roster construction and how the roster's been put together and the cap issues, and we could talk about that till we're blue in the face about the cap issues and defensively and the consistency. But you mentioned some of the things that, they're not a perfect team. It's a loss to Buffalo. You have the momentum. You have the adrenaline, the 1-0 goal. Yeah, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen plays great. But to me, I think the biggest thing to me that I still see is this team does not compete for 60 minutes, and that could bite them later on in the season. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. There aren't a lot of, how to put this kindly without getting myself in trouble. Not a lot of guys who I think are going to be in contention to win a Selk Trophy anytime soon on that roster. And it's a lot of offensively driven guys. I'm not going to say it's guys who don't work hard, but it's maybe guys who don't necessarily play a complete 200-foot game, and that can start with 86, and that's always going to be an issue there. And that's what his game is. It's it's what you accept with him. He's not a guy who's going to give you a lot at the other end of the ice, but. Like you said, I mean, they have some issues with competing for a full 60, which is kind of weird under a Sheldon Keefe team too, because that's kind of his MO with, what he's trying to bring at least. And there have been stretches there. I mean, I think it was last year, there was that stretch there where they, were only allowing like fewer than 20 shots on goal for such a long period of time there and consecutive games. And that's kind of got away from that. That's been an issue. I think they're really hamstrung by some moves that the Tom Fitzgerald made as well. Obviously they were at least in contention on paper at minimum to bring in Quinn Hughes, but there were some trades that got vetoed with all the no movement and no trade and all the stuff that he had given out to kind of get some guys to come to New Jersey. So they're in an interesting spot. They really are. It's kind of interesting to see how they're going to look moving forward, what they're able to do moving forward too. I mean, they're kind of limited in some of the moves that they can make, like I said, with the clauses that have been handed out. And they don't, as we've seen, they don't have a deep NHL ready prospect pool at all. I mean, they're not deep, especially up front. So going to be interesting to see how they look moving forward. But like you said, Jim, they need to really kind of buckle down and kind of, give Sheldon Keefe a little bit more of a full 60 consistently.
Yeah, 60-minute effort, definitely an issue, not unique to the Devils, but certainly something that we've seen from the team in New Jersey for a little while now. But Mike, you said something very interesting about a minute ago about, what Tom Fitzgerald had to do to get certain players to come to New Jersey, because obviously before the last few years, the Devils had only had one playoff appearance in a span of 10 years. Now they've gone to the last 3. So, when a team isn't winning, it's more difficult to bring in players, but they managed to bring in 2 players that reshaped the goaltender depth chart in Jake Allen and Jacob Marchment. And while last year that duo was very solid and certainly a very big reason behind the Devils' success, with Marchment being so-called number 1A and Allen being the 1B or backup. This year, the dynamic seems to have flipped a little bit. I mean, we know that Jacob Marchment had some injury issues to deal with. Jake Allen has certainly played better in more playing time than maybe people expected. What's your take on the dynamic between the 2 goaltenders?
Again, another one it's a little bit of a slippery slope for sure with trying not to say too much, but I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves on Markstrom. And I think the extension was probably a bit of a mistake, if you want the truth. Again, he has a whole second half of a season to prove everybody wrong, or at least those who feel that way wrong. I don't know that they necessarily have a true number 1 guy. I don't know if I would say it's a 1A and a 1B. It's kind of like a 2A and a 2A at this point. Although I will say Jake Allen, when he really gets going, he's shown there's a lot more left in the tank than people maybe gave him credit for. When he came over, whatever that was, a season and a half ago now, or whatever that was, I was a little skeptical on that one because his game had kind of been trending downward, but it seems like he's kind of found something, especially this year too. So, him to a long-term deal like they kind of have him on is fine. The Markstrom extension, it's not obviously long-term, but it feels like it's a little bit of a bridge to Yegorov, which is a separate conversation in itself. So, maybe Nico Dawes factors in somewhere in there down the road, but that's been kind of an issue, kind of having to play the hot hand. It's always been said if you have 2 goaltenders or 3, even you don't have one. So I don't know how that's going to play out for them, but for me, Jake Allen should be given every opportunity to get the starters load of games there, but we'll see how that goes moving forward. I don't make those decisions. So
no, we don't make those decisions either. I mean, I wish I would make those decisions, but I don't make those decisions, and they're tough decisions to make. And I think my last one on New Jersey here before we move around to the rest of the Metro Division and the local flair is we mentioned tough decisions. And at some point, these tough decisions have to be made because you mentioned it earlier. what can the Devils do? What legitimately, realistically, can they do? Because they still have a player that is going to be coming off LTIR that they need cap space for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been reported obviously that there were a minimum of 1, maybe 2 deals that were vetoed in terms of trying to at least at minimum clear up cap space. So yeah, it feels like past Tom Fitzgerald is kind of screwed over current Tom Fitzgerald a little bit. A lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of deals to do some things here. So I don't know. They need, like you guys said, they're not a perfect team. They need to do something. They have to make a pretty significant move here to clear some space just to get their own guys on. So yeah, that's a great question. I really don't. They got to do something. They have to find a way to clear somebody out. I know Andre Palat's name has come up a fair amount. I don't know what the market would be there at this point. What if you're just trying to get a mid to later round pick just to have somebody take that contract off. But there's really, a guy like a Luke Glendening is not making anything. I'm not sure he's really a legitimate, top 12 NHL guy anymore. But if you do something with it, there's nothing. Your options are so limited with the box that they've painted themselves into now. That's a good question, and I don't know what they can do. They need somebody essentially to do them a favor at this point.
Speaking of teams that need favors done and need to make moves, the New York Rangers right now, JT Miller, their captain, just placed on IR. They just played their last game 11-7 because along with Miller missing, Gabe Perreault and Matt Rempe both missed it with illness. Obviously, that's not expected to keep the two of them out. I don't even think beyond any further games. But Adam Fox is still out, although supposedly he could be back in the next couple weeks. But Mike, this is a team that is paper thin at full health. And right now they are at much less than full health, and they need to make moves if they want to avoid having to go into another full-on rebuild.
Yeah, I think you guys know I probably watch the Rangers more than any of the other local teams. I'm at MSG more than I am either Peru or UBS. I'm at Peru a fair amount, UBS a little bit. But Rangers are such a freaking frustrating watch. They really are. It feels like there is, like you said, they're paper thin, but they are pretty top heavy too. And there's enough there to where they should be better than what they've been in the last 2 years. Like that team on paper should not have come close to missing the playoffs last year, and they did. This group isn't too different than last year's group. It seems like they're kind of letting more of the youth get a little bit of a chance this year with, like you said, Perreault, and Othman's getting an extended look. Brett Berard just coming back up on Monday. Matt Rempe, if you still want to call him a young guy, they're kind of going to more of a youth movement here, it seems like. But yeah, that's a tough one. They're currently out of a playoff spot. I don't put a lot of stock into that given the East and how tight that race has been. I don't really put a lot of stock into that with who's in and who's out right now. I mean, Detroit is leading the Atlantic and they could finish 12 points out for all we know. It's been kind of a crazy couple months here with how tight the schedule has been with the Olympic break too. But yeah, Rangers, Taylor Radish has been kind of a miss. That was one of their big free agent signings this offseason, and all he really has done is kind of take up a top 6, top 9 spot for some of the younger guys. Connor Sherry, I don't know, has really panned out. Sam Carrick has been a grinder there, but he's only got 1 goal through 37 or 38 games or what it is. So I think it's time to really start giving some of those younger guys more of an opportunity. Gabe Perreault kind of earned his way onto that top line later in the last home game they played. But that's, again, it's a frustrating watch over there because, again, there's enough on paper, at least up top, even without Adam Fox, and you can really see how much Adam Fox drives their power play and the numbers of how much they've changed since he's been gone there on the man advantage. But even without him, having Igor back there and having what they have up front, up top in their top 2 lines, it's not been good enough. It's just flat not been good enough, and that's been shocking, especially after the way things went last year.
So I'm going to bring in a team from the other division for a second, and because I saw some quotes from Craig Berube and Austin Matthews and some things over the weekend from Toronto, and it reminded me what's coming out of New York. because you could just take whoever posted him, which was Steve Dangle, and you could just basically say, oh, wait a minute, it's the New York Rangers. Is it a mental thing at MSG for these guys right now?
Certainly possible. I mean, that room after some of the home games and where it just felt like they were, I don't know, cursed or what. That was a tough room to walk into for sure. But I mean, obviously you guys saw Toronto on Monday letting Mark Savard go. I don't think the Rangers can do anything that drastic, nor is that necessarily necessary yet. I think Toronto has been arguably the biggest disappointment in the league all year, maybe bar none. I don't know if the Rangers are necessarily at that point yet. But the road and the home numbers, like you said, Jim, are pretty jarring. And it felt like there was a stretch there, but they were kind of getting away from that and kind of things that had corrected themselves. Maybe that's just who they are. I don't know. Maybe home is a little bit more of just who they are. And I don't know. It shouldn't be a mental thing, right? Like MSG, it's I'll at least say from my perspective, it's one of the best buildings in the league. I don't know if the atmosphere is necessarily comparable to maybe even what you see at Peru or UBS when it's at the top of its game. It's a little bit more corporate at MSG. I don't think that's any secret, but if it is a mental thing, it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. The Rangers fans are some of the best fans anywhere, and they'll boo the what out of you when you deserve it. But when you're when you're earning it, they will get out of their seats and will be the first people to scream at the top of their lungs for you and support you the best they can. So it shouldn't be, and I hope that's not the case. That's a tough question, but I hope that's not the case in there. It shouldn't be.
Mike, we've asked you a lot right now about two teams that are, whether you want to say underperforming, whether you want to say struggling, whether you want to say not maximizing their potential, whatever phrase you want to use. But on the flip side, there is a third team that you are around at least a little bit that has so far, and again, it's not even halfway into the season, so things could change in either direction. But the Islanders are far exceeding expectations right now. I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting them to be. I mean, as of the recording of this podcast, the Islanders are in third place in the Metropolitan Division. Most people were probably picking them to be more like sixth in the division than third. And Matthew Schaefer has been better than advertised even. They've obviously run into some injury issues, with Bo Horvat right now, with Ilya Sorokin being a little banged up. Maybe Matt Barzal isn't quite the player that everyone thought he was during his first 2 or 3 years in the league, but he's still pretty much their engine. What's your take on this Islanders team and how, or where do you think they might end up?
I went to UBS twice this year. So.
Uh-oh.
And we lost Mike.
Uh-oh.
His
Where's
internet?
Spaghetti-O when you need it?
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Hey, guys, this is what we do in recordings, right? This is what happens. Sometimes people drop out just like that. But the Islanders, a good team, right? Like we talked about it earlier in the year, right? We were talking about Islanders earlier in the year. And we were like, they could compete for a wild card spot. They may be a wild card spot. Like for me, I was asked about the Islanders in the offseason. I said, okay. And we talked about this with Stefan, right? Like now let's see what this team is like under Patrick Waugh offensively, right? Because now you got the offense. They're not playing that defensive style that Lou Lamoriello likes to do. Now let's see what this team can be running gun-wise. And not too much run and gun, but offensive up-tempo team. And here we are, Islanders kicking around in a playoff spot right now. This is surprising for the Islanders, which is a good thing.
Yeah, now look, and I know a lot of Islander fans will probably throw tomatoes at their screen for what I'm about to say, but hear me out because there is a legitimate analogy here. There is a legitimate comparison. In 2012, 2013, the wheels, I don't want to say came off for the New York Rangers, but, obviously it was one of those, lockout shortened years, but they had gone to the Eastern Conference Final the year before. They were a team on the upswing. They made some big moves. They brought in Rick Nash, and then they sort of face planted in 2012-13. Still made the playoffs, but, they certainly took steps back. That team was known as a defensive, grinding, a la Lou Lamoriello type of team, even though Lou had nothing to do with the
No.
team, with John Tortorella's team. And then, in terms of what happened, the Rangers got rid of Tortorella, and then they got back, and then they brought in Alain Vigneault. And Alain Vigneault changed the team to an up-tempo, not quite a run and done, but an up-tempo team. And they took off. They went to the Stanley Cup final in 14. They went to the Eastern Conference final in 15. They really took those steps when changing, and the personnel was pretty much the same, but they were able to do things. And that's what this Islanders team reminds me of. Oh, and look who's back.
Mike Ashmore is back in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Hey,
that was a great answer too. Damn it, I'm annoyed that got cut off.
Hey, we'll re-ask the question because this is where we're talking. We're still talking Islanders, talking Rangers a little bit here with you, because just a little technical difficulties with you. But again, the Islanders playing well, right? And look, Matthew Schaefer brings in a lot of electricity to this team. But was there realistically an expectation to have this team where it is right now? As Matt said, as of this recording, sitting in third in the Metro Division, because I think a lot of people coming into the season probably say, maybe 5 or 6 in the division.
No, no reason to really think that was going to be much different than last year because they're mostly the same group. Obviously, Schaefer is a really big part of things there in the way they've turned things around. Like Matt was saying before I faded into, as Mike Tyson might say, Bolivian there for a couple minutes.
Into talk.
Yes. Before I faded away into who knows where for a couple minutes there. Ilya Sorokin's been pretty good. Barzal has shown flashes of that guy who was kind of that perennial all-star a couple years ago. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy that you buy tickets to go see anymore. Schaefer's probably that guy. He's not like that electric kind of dynamic game changer that maybe he once was. Bo Horvat coming back will be really big for them when that happens. But I do kind of wonder, like I said, it's mostly the same group. I wonder how much of Lou kind of stepping away kind of has a little bit of an influence on maybe things loosening up there for the better. But like you guys asked before, it's interesting. As of the time of this taping, they're third in the Metro, but they're also like 6 or 7 points away from being, next to dead last in the conference. So it's a pretty thin margin right now with the way things are in the first half of the year and the way things are in the Eastern Conference. But there's also no reason to think that they can't sustain this too. So I really do think that they'll be the most interesting team, most fun team to watch out of the 3 in the area, and hopefully I can get back there a lot more often than just twice so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, before we let you go for real this time, before you fade back off, we've got one last question here. So, and I'm going to combine the 3 teams for a moment. We know the Devils coming into the season had high expectations. We know the Rangers wanted to get back to a place, and we know the Islanders had lesser expectations, but seemed to be exceeding them. If you had to be that one picking, come, either the trade deadline or the end of the season, who do you think of the 3 teams? Where do you think the 3 teams rank just amongst each other? Forget about, who's going to be third place in the division, who's going to be what wild card. Just what order do you think the 3 of them will be?
I feel like I've been fooled by the Rangers so many times, right? Like I want to believe in them, and I want to believe that they are to make some sort of splash in March to where if they're still in it, they would do something to really fortify that group. I don't know if they'll be in it still realistically by the time we get to that point. So I'd have to put them third, which again is kind of tough because there's just so much there. But they keep trending towards being a group that's going to sell. Obviously, the Panarin rumors are a little, off and on depending on how they look in the standings. But I'll go Rangers third. I will go Devils second, and I will go Islanders first. The Devils are just too inconsistent for me in a lot of key areas. Like you guys have said, consistent 60 and defensive effort from forwards and consistency in goaltending. I like what the Islanders are doing. Do I know that it's sustainable? No, but of the 3 right now, I trust them the most, which I guess is easiest to say where they are in the standings, but I trust them the most right now.
Well put out there, Mike. And ladies and gentlemen, we've been enjoying our chat here with Mike Ashmore of the Trentonian, and we'll be back with more Blue Line Blast podcast after our next non-existent sponsor break. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back from our second non-existent sponsor break to the show. There's the mug. Still waiting for someone to claim it. We had a great chat about the Devils, Islanders, and Rangers with Mike Ashmore of the Trentonian. And now, Jim, there are some trades that need to be broken down. And now, they don't rise to the level of the Twin Hughes blockbuster, but they did take place on a Friday night. They are trades of, significant players. Mason Marchment went from Seattle to Columbus in a bit of a head scratcher. And then Philip Danault, who rumors were out there that he, wanted to go. The rumors were around that he was going to get traded. Went from LA to Montreal. And Jim, that trade makes a ton of sense.
Yes, 100%.
Montreal going out and getting another center. Absolutely, hats off to Hughes and Gordon for doing, for going out and getting arguably the best available center, middle six type center, without having to go out and try to get, an aging veteran who's over the hill type. And I guess let's start with Danault because Marchment is.
That's a weird one. That's a weird one. It is. Look, let's start with Danault. Like you said, starting with Danault. Like, I think everybody saw that the rumors were out there that Danault wanted out, but they didn't want out. But there was he requested a trade. But if you talk to LA, here's a big thing with this. When people come out and say they deny it publicly, usually it means something's going to happen. To me, when Philip Danault's name came out there, I think the biggest connection was back to Montreal. I don't know if he ever wanted to leave, but the Canadians just couldn't pay him at the time. The fact that the Kings couldn't get a player for him is tough, but I think it was just too much of a hot mess in there now because he had the flu, missed a couple of games, but whether you want to believe it or not, he missed 4 games, maybe a couple because of trade-related purposes and a transaction that would have been down the road. I know he was linked to Utah. I know he's linked to New Jersey, but again, New Jersey cap space, as we talked with Mike about, is just non-existent right now, and they really can't do anything until they really open up the cap space. So Danault to Montreal always made the connection. It just made the most sense. Again, checks the boxes, takes pressure off Nick Suzuki because he can play as a second-line center. He's done it before. Yeah, the points might not be there, but he takes responsibilities away now from Nick Suzuki, especially on the penalty kill. Now Suzuki can actually play first line more, not get as many tough matchups, face-offs all the time. They just relied on Suzuki so much. This is there's some Montreal media that don't like it if they're just looking at statistics. But if a need needed to be filled in Montreal, this was it. And I love the return of Philip Danault to Montreal.
No, absolutely. I agree with everything you said there. And I mean, if you look at the back of Danault's hockey card, as you will, he's not going to light it up. He's not going to give you a ton of points. Maybe about a point every 2 games type of play, roughly. And that's plenty respectable. But defensively, I mean, this is a guy who's been in the Celtic conversation for most of his career.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, as you mentioned, he's going to make things so much easier for Suzuki. So much easier. Because even though other teams are going to obviously still go try stop Suzuki, because, if they have last change, that's just what they're going to do. And that's what any team would do. But now Montreal can counter back without having to only rely on Suzuki to try to do it because Danault will now go match up against, the top centers in the league, the top lines in the league. And all of a sudden it becomes a fair fight for Montreal.
Yes.
Yes,
it does.
It's no longer that they're bringing a knife to a gunfight. They're no longer, bringing one man to a 2-man fight. They're no longer outnumbered. Now they've got it. Montreal's got it. Obviously, they still have some issues. Up and down their roster, but this can't be anything other than a win for Montreal. Now, Marchment for Columbus, I don't know if that's a win.
I think they needed some offensive firepower, and Marchment can do it. I've been trying to figure out something, and I don't know I think there's been some whispers out there about potentially had to waive a no trade to go to Columbus because I think they offered them the 2 picks for Marchment, and that's a deal that they wanted to make. And don't forget, both these deals came in under the wire of the holiday freeze, right? Like on Friday, both those deals came down like right before the holiday freeze. But yeah, Marchment into Columbus, it makes me wonder if Columbus may flip him for assets later on before at the deadline. Like, again, they could retain on it a little bit. So, and again, lower. It's not a no state income tax state, but it's lower than some of the taxes around this area. Well, anything's lower around than this area.
Well, yeah.
But I think, we'll see what happens there. They definitely need some firepower in that lineup. They just don't have it. And I think when Werenski said what he said about how, they just need some more help, some offensive help, Don Waddell made the call. And Seattle's not done by far. They have other pieces that are going to move too. Marchment's just the first of players to go. But it was a head scratcher to me. But it makes me wonder if Columbus is out of it, do they try to move him again?
Well, so first of all, Marchment's cap hit 4.5. So pretty reasonable, especially for a 2-time 20-goal scorer. Yeah. So, reasonably priced, arguably. Puck PD doesn't have doesn't list him as having any type of protection clauses whatsoever. So, I mean, not to say that that's be all end all, but so far it doesn't seem like he actually had to waive anything.
Or the official. Why would
Seattle do that with Marchment? This was his first year with Seattle.
Well, he got traded there in the summer from Dallas. Dallas did him a solid to go to a team that was no state income tax.
Right. So I don't know that he really would qualify for the unofficial, I think, but who knows? Anything's possible. Marchment, again, he can provide some goal scoring, some secondary scoring. He had 22 goals last year. He had 22 the year before that. He had 47 points last year, 53 the year before that. Like, the guy is a proven secondary scorer. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is, well, Columbus, they really haven't built upon that so-called, momentum building year that they had last year. It's just one of those things, and I do agree with you. I think they could potentially flip him again, but I don't know. It's always so difficult. To me, it's always difficult for a player to get traded and then also get traded again in such a short amount of time, because your routine gets upheaved. They have to find chemistry with their new line mates, with their new teammates. There's so much going on. It's not easy for players to adjust quickly to a new setting, and then to have to do it twice in 2 months.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. When I saw the trade go down, I'm like, oh, Seattle's going to retain some money here. Maybe they'll do a double retention because that was the last day to do the double retention. Right?
Well, no, you can't do double retention anymore.
No, you have to do it. You have to do it within a certain amount of time. And I think that the trade freeze date was within that allotted period of time before the March 6th trade deadline, where you could do it and have you couldn't do it right away. You couldn't get, I remember back in the day on the trade deadline, the player would go to one team and then he immediately go to the other team because there'd be double retention. Now you need that grace period. And I believe I was reading that was the last day if a team wanted to do you could do double retention. But now that's not the case because they flipped the
it is 75 regular season day 75 regular season day waiting period.
Right. So I think it was just in under the wire or close to it to where they could do it. That's what I was reading anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Marchment probably stays UFA anyway. So even if they don't re-sign him, he'll go someplace else, a hefty dollar. But while we were talking about this, I got some breaking news on the Twitter. Well, I mean, we don't talk about this a lot, but ECHL players have served notice that they're going to strike. They're on strike December 26th. So interesting. Really interesting.
Especially because the AHL players seem like they're going to be coming to an agreement for their new collective bargaining. So unfortunately, the CHL doesn't have the same labor left, I guess.
No, they do not, and it's unfortunate because ECHL's some good hockey there, and they're claiming unfair practices and pay, and they want to bargain, and they want better things, and hey, why not, right? Because that is a feeder league into your AHL and into your NHL program. So all the best to those guys doing that, and never easy because look, the NHL has gone through it. We've seen it, multiple lockouts, and there was a strike, and it takes time away from playing, and that's never a good thing as long as things get worked out in the end. And maybe, hey, Matt, maybe the Devils actually figure out how to work things out in the end too, right, with their cap.
From your lips to Tom Fitzgerald's ears.
I hope.
And to the Hockey God's ears.
I hope.
But Jim, I think we've covered it all. Again, happy holidays to everybody. Happy holidays to all of you out there who support the Blue Line Blast podcast. Happy holidays to our non-existent sponsor. And, I had to get another one in there. and Jim, take us home on this Christmas Eve.
Guys, it's been the Blue Line Blast podcast. Thanks for everybody for watching, checking us out here on YouTube. Jim Biringer, Matthew Blittner. Thank you to Mike Ashmore for joining us. Guys, we'll be back. See you in the new year.